How have things changed? Also, please give us a recommendation for one great diversion that is getting you through right now. Could be a book, movie, TV series, podcast, recipe, activity, etc. And tell us why it matters to you. How have things changed? These days, I, a poet, watch this world slowly reach the same conclusions I have. Human rights matter to more than just humans. The earth is tired of our shit. Purchasing power is not more luxurious than love. Your undoing in quarantine might be the only thing that will save us all from indefinite incarceration, eco-genocide. In the ancient cultures I come from, the ones that were burned and imprisoned and buried in my blood, stories of bats describe a ritual death, an initiation for a new beginning, a rebirth in darkness. These days, like many nights before, I, a queer brown female body in movement born of criminalized peoples, remember our bodies were never made for nor welcomed into a world where loving, moving, and breathing are punished with lethal dis-ease. These days, for me and mine, nothing has really changed. We continue miraculously living into the tender, fierce resilience this warring world has conceived in us, knowing the fall is coming. But first, there must be spring. A recommendation for you hearing this, painfully recognizing the season. Consider setting aside diversion and being brave enough to see you are seed in potent darkness. Reach for the cool water. Find pleasure in thundering nights. Touch the earth that is your skin. Call in the magic buried in your blood. Dare to break open and climax by your own hands. For our work now is to bloom beautiful in chaos and return home come winter. So that piece for me brought together so many different prayers that live inside of my body, that live inside, I think, the bodies of many of us, especially those of us who are speaking tonight, that there is this metrics of time that doesn't look like a singular, linear, high production form. There's a way of living that our bodies were made for. There's a time for rest, and then there's a time for creating, there's a time for seeding, there's a time for cosechando, or getting the fruit. And I think that if we learn to listen to those rhythms, if we learn to recognize that we need to build a world in which those rhythms are honored, we will be honoring not only ourselves and each other's sanity, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, but of the land, the thing that nurtures us and sustains us. And I want to bring up a brilliant writer that has been so grounding for me in the last few years, but particularly in this moment, Arundhati Roy, who is an Indian writer, an intellectual, and she talks about this pandemic as being a portal to walk through into a new world that respects the rights of humans, of the land, of the water, that reimagines what it is we're capable of being and doing. And I think it's time for us in this cycle, for us to really consider this as an opportunity to radically change and radically reimagine. And so I want to hold that grounding. I want to share that grounding. And I'm sure so many of us who are speaking tonight will share that grounding. And I also want to recognize how, for me, writing as a poet, as a writer, writing allows us to really see. It's like an X-ray for our spirit and our heart. It allows us to see what is really happening under the constant thoughts or the constant distractions, what is happening inside of our body. And so I encourage you to engage in that tool of slow thought, where you have to write word per word, really communicate with yourself first and foremost. What is your truth in this moment? And I think that truth, however hard it is a part of the seeding and is part of walking into that new world. And I want to give thanks so much to the ways that I have been taught ancestrally to do this, to lean on each other, to depend on people, when we live in a country in a dominating society that says an individual should be completely independent. And we have a lot of conversations in the Indigenous communities around autonomy. And it's important to recognize that we want autonomy from a destructive world and society, but we definitely need to live into kinship economies or dependency in a collective economy and infrastructure that allows us to feel like we're loved, feel like we don't have to work so hard that we put ourselves in danger. And so I give thanks as a living example in this moment, in this time, where I can lean on my kin, I can lean on my familia, lean on my community, chosen family as a queer child, a queer baby. My bio family is not a safe place for me and has not been for many years, even as an adult. And so I have had to choose and build and invest my time and my energy into building relationships. And that is now what is saving me. It is now what is offering me a safe place to be, a beautiful home to live in, a beautiful garden to eat from. So I want to also put that out as an artist, as an Indigenous, a brown woman, that for me, what has really been the most helpful in this time is to lean back on the things that are countercurrent, that are autonomous from this dominating culture, but interdependent on my community and the people and the land around me. So I'm not going to take up more time, but I'm so thankful to open this space and open this portal for this evening and hopefully for generations to come. And I encourage you to be in contact with me. I put my social media handle down in the corner. So I'm at Erika Chilome, and you can find me on the internet. And I want to continue supporting everyone in their great work of reimagining a new world. And so I'm so excited to hear from everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Erika. We're going to move on, and thank you for opening this space. So, Carla, is your mother going to join us as well, Maria? Oh, there we are. Okay. So, yes, you're busy creating autonomous neighborhood community resilience through mutual aid right now. I'm curious if you'd like to speak on what dreaming another world looks like, or decolonizing our understanding of mutual aid.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Sarina, one of my best friends in the whole world, who I don't think I would get through this life without. So I just want to acknowledge our love and sisterhood connection and how real that's been as a resource. And just, you know, friendship is something that has been the greatest resource for me. For understanding self, building community, grounding my hopes and dreams. So I just want to acknowledge you. And I also want to say thank you, Erika, for all the energy you gave through your poetry and through your insight. That was just, as you were speaking, I was imagining what that world would look like, where we're able to keep each other safe, where we're able to take care of each other and meet each other's needs. And I want to just say I believe that's the most important thing we can be doing. That's some of the most important work we can be engaged in at this time. I also believe we're stepping through a portal. We're not going back. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think, you know, within the uncertainty and the unknown, that leaves a lot of possibilities for what can be. And that's an incredibly powerful, creative life force to tap into. So the connections we make is the life that we live, and we are definitely each other's greatest resource. And I wanted to, this is my mom, Maria Gladys. You want to say hi? I can hear you.
Hello, everybody.
This is also, oh, sorry.
Thanks for having me here, and I am listening. It's very nice, the speech you're giving, and it's very important for to many people like you guys have this organization.
Yeah. And this is your first Zoom?
Yeah, this is my first.
This is good because we were trying to figure out how she can talk to her friends. So
yeah.
This is setting her up right.
So, is there anything from the hospital, since your mother is a nurse right now in LA?
Yeah, she's actually, well, I first wanted to say we also wanted to acknowledge the land that we're on just to ground ourselves. We are speaking to you from Los Angeles, California. The original caretakers of this land are the Tonga Gabrielino peoples. And the why that's important for us is because they are the past, present, and future caretakers. And the more the more we understand, the more that we understand what doesn't belong to us, I think is really important in terms of like letting the world go and knowing that nothing is legitimate until we acknowledge Indigenous peoples and the land that they take care of everywhere. I think about this a lot in university spaces. And I'm sure a lot of you do too. It's also really nice to be around other queer Indigenous people. That's not something I always get to share space in. So I'm really grateful for that. But all universities were granted illegitimately, were taken, right? The land that universities are built on were Indigenous lands. And there's something you can look up called the Moral Act if you want to know more about that. But I just wanted to say that because Indigenous stewardship is the future, and they provide the solutions for where we're going to need to go. So I think deep listening is a part of our practice and things that we need to do in the everyday. But so I wanted to bring my mom in because she's not a nurse, but she's a phlebotomist. And so she takes people's blood every day, and she's working with COVID patients every day. And I think before this, she wasn't really like, do you feel like people were acknowledging your work and how important what it is that you do?
Well, we like I am working in emergency room. We are the first ones, like we are in the line. Any people is coming to us, we have to be taken like any family, whatever it is, what we are taking to them. Only we have to be protected. What we have to protect any COVID-19 is coming. Someone is positive, someone is not. And the positives we incubated in the ER. After they are coming, all the results, we putting in isolation zones. They decide the doctors.
So I wanted to acknowledge her work because it's often undervalued, and people are now giving her a lot of thanks. But phlebotomists and many ER workers, it's women of color, immigrants who do that labor, and it's finally being seen for the first time. But I also feel like I feel like a lot more work has to be done because, they're giving them pizza parties, but not PPE, not protective equipment that they need to do their job safely. So, so that was my intro to mutual aid, was actually making sure. I asked my mom, do you have what you need? She's like, they gave me one N95 per week, one N95 per week. And that's a well-resourced hospital that she works for. So I knew that's a problem and there was a need. So we sourced hundreds of masks, right, for you, and she distributed them on the floor, kind of defying the administration of her hospital, who weren't listening, weren't responsive, were really disconnected from what was needed. So that was an intervention, right? It was we didn't wait. We made sure that she got what she needed and that she was able to distribute that to others. And so from there, I think and mutual aid, I just want to say, is something that I wanted to talk about, decolonizing our idea of that, because it's something that Indigenous people have been doing forever to survive. And people of color in this country and immigrants have always done. I think about how my mom has always very quietly just sent whatever she had, has always shared that with other people. And so she's always been my example, what you have, you give. And if you need something, you ask for it, and it's a reciprocity, and that extends, you know, with relationships, with our relationship to the land. And so that's something that I've really learned just by her example. And she's someone that gives and cares a lot. And you know, so I'm just like, and this whole thing has changed us forever. And I just want to say, let it change you. I feel like we're like, it has enabled us to respond and think about what's needed, and be direct about it, because there's a lot to build. So I wanted to share, so we're doing that through mutual aid networks. I'm part of a group of, I think, 400 people. It's hard to say because LA is a really big city, but Mutual Aid Los Angeles raised over $100,000 and are getting people food, sanitary supplies, and cash assistance to anyone that needs it through an application form. And there are a bunch of different teams, from drivers to doing outreach to calling people and seeing what they need. And it's a pretty vast network, but it also reveals the things that we still have, the needs that aren't being met in our communities. So I think doing this kind of work is really humbling, because it makes you realize, like, there's a lot more to be done. But the imagination piece of, like, it's really important to, like, put the prayer and put the imagination into everything that you do, and trust people before anything else, that we are building a radically different infrastructure that can take care of people. And it's not perfect because it's made by people, but there's an intention and a willingness to try, and to be vulnerable. And I think vulnerability is part of, is maybe the biggest gift we can offer each other right now, is that shared vulnerability as we build.
Thank you, Frank. I keep calling you Frankie, nickname Carla. Would you be able to quickly share with us your film, and then we'll move on?
Yeah, so I'm going to share, I'll share a video. It's a rough cut. So I'm also an organizer for the LA Tenants Union, and we fight to keep people in their homes regardless of whether they can make their rent or not. So we're organizing for May 1st and beyond. And this is the video that's not done yet, that me and my brother made. That's been the art piece, was like, how do we use our skills as storytellers and artists to support movement work? So I'll share that. Cool.
People aren't striking because they don't feel like paying rent. People are striking because they can't pay rent. They can't.
1/3 of Americans didn't pay rent in April. 26 million Americans lost their jobs.
We can talk facts all day, but the truth is, essential workers risk their lives every day just to keep their homes.
We shouldn't be living this life just to pay rent.
It's clear their priority is to keep us open for business than to keep us alive.
Whether you're in a hospital, a grocery store, or in quarantine, it's time we protect each other and our homes. We are all essential in this fight.
Housing is a human right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to try to shorten everything to like 1 to 2 minutes of answering. So I'm just gonna like do a very quick question for people as we go on. But yes, always share from the heart. And I'm sorry that we just don't have the most time in this. So Ome and Claudia, I wanted to introduce you from the El Paso Desert with the question of, what does autonomy, self-survival mean to you with your art, activism work, how you're planting, putting seeds in the soil, tattoos? You both have such diverse things going on.
Yes, we do. Good evening. Hello, everyone. It's really beautiful to be in this shared space and to be coming from you. A lot of us I know are here in Piro, Manso, Suma, Tigua, Apache, Suma, did I say Suma? Territories here on the frontera. And so thank you, Erika, for beautifully opening us up in that way and helping us all to ground from those collective ancestral spaces that we're sitting and resting in, most of us at home, most of us not moving or out and about too much. And I just quickly wanted to say that for me, organizing has typically left me without a kind of a real grounding and security in what I need for myself, for my life. And interestingly, this time has really helped me to ground and connect in the probably the most expansive and most kind of connected way that I ever have with my needs at home, with my family community, our little safe network. We've really been taking everything that we've accumulated over the years and relying a lot on our ancestral connections to traditions and the wisdom of our peoples to really put a lot of intention in this springtime, in this time of planting, into making sure that we will have what we need, and making sure that we're doing that in a way that is wholly reciprocal, meaning we've been keeping alive and even creating in this time of need. There's so much creativity that comes forward out of just pure necessity, even creating the kinds of ceremonies that we know we need to have before we put the seed in the ground. You know, even doing the research that we need to do to make sure that we can expand on what we know. And we have so much information, you know, just through our networks and also through the internet that we can access to really be more effective, you know, with every square inch of land we have, even if we can have a few pots on the windowsill. Like fear and safety for me has been transcended by putting my hands in the earth every day, by praying with the water before I drink it, before I put it on the plants in the morning, speaking to having a dialogue with the seed and the earth before it's even put in that place, and offering songs, learning new songs, reaching out into my networks to find the songs that I can sing to the corn in my language, which happens to be Quechua as an Andean woman. These are just some things that I wanted to briefly say have been filling our days and our time. We come in an hour after the sun has gone down and it's dark, you know, from a day full of work, feeling just vibrating, you know, with all of what we've been able to receive and give in that relationship. And it's giving us this sense of security, you know, with the 6 chickens and the 100 plants of potatoes and all the corn that's now coming up, and this sense that like we will be okay, and drawing on, you know, calling to my grandmother and asking her, help me remember, you know, help me put that into the ground so that I can live the way you live, so that we can all collectively remember how to do what we need to do to be able to provide, not just for ourselves, for our families, for our larger communities. And it's been a really, really beautiful time for us in that way. So I'll leave Ome a little space to say something else about how we've been doing.
All right. Kwali Owali, good evening, or Kwali Tonali for some of you in the different places where you're at. I think everybody's in the afternoon, so good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Ome Tlalok, and it can be translated into English from Nahuatl as two rains, two rains. So, you know, I'm speaking to you, of course, from sacred lands. These are my ancestral homelands. I descend from a Uto-Aztecan speaking people. When I grew up, my grandmother called the mud soquete, and she called the grass zacate, and she called, you know, the twins in the family cuates, and, you know, the list goes on. Chicle, you know, chile, mole, chocolate, all those words that we use in our Nahuatl language, our original native language. So we recognize this in our family lineage. We haven't lost those roots there. So yeah, you know, like Lalia said, we plant corn, and we do the whole ancestral thing, you know. And I think about this pandemic, the way that it's been going, you know, how to transcend fear from this whole virus. You know, it seems like this is something new, but if we look inside of ourselves in history, this isn't something new. You know, our people have faced this before, and we've been met with pandemics and different diseases along the way of our trials and tribulations with the outside world. And so yeah, with that being said, it reminds me of this quote that one of the old leaders, you know, that old Tlatoani, the one that speaks for our people, he said, Noche entleñolo kitlasotla, kiwe tlakemati. He said, you know, all those beautiful things that are in our culture, he said, everything's going real bad right now, but put those beautiful things deep in your heart and save them and carry them with you wherever you go. And that right there has, you know, transcended my existence into a new reality where we're faced with you know, the persecution of gathering amongst one another to hold ceremony or to even, you know, shake our hands and give ourselves hugs and kisses the way that we're used to as a culture. So with that being said, you know, that's what is. I think everything's going to be real good in the future, as long as, you know, we do that, you know, carry those instructions that our old ancestors have passed to us. And with that being said, yeah, I'll say that. Kwali kwali.
Thank you so much, both of you. So we're going to go on with Philip. In El Paso, how right now have you been creating healing assignments for yourself at home in this time? I heard you've been exploring nature for inspiration, or how can we do these types of things for ourselves to heal ourselves right now?
I almost forgot to mute. I think it's really important for us to try and get back to this is a perfect opportunity for us to get back into nature, you know. For myself, I work at the El Paso Museum of Art. I teach ceramics amongst other places, but primarily at the El Paso Museum of Art. And what's happened to me personally is that I use that studio space as my own personal studio space, with permission from my supervisors and whatnot. But all of my tools, all of my equipment, all of my material stayed at the El Paso Museum of Art. And this thing fell on us so quickly that I wasn't able to go get any of my things. Currently, I don't have any of my tools or materials to work with, so I haven't been able to be an active ceramic artist, because, like, I'm not going to order a whole bunch of new tools again, right? That would just be ridiculous, I think. So what I've been trying to do is stay active using other forms of art, reminding myself that I do know how to draw. I do know how to use paint on and brushes and canvas, and paint on canvas. I do a lot of leather work. I make Native American jewelry, medicine bags and whatnot. But I think one of the things that's most important to me is reconnecting with nature. You know, stepping outside and going for a nature walk, and reconnecting. A lot of us had. I hate to say it like this, but I think we needed this COVID pandemic, and we needed all this to happen so that we could reconnect. Because how many of us went on our daily obstacles in our daily, whatever what is that we do, and get in the car and drive and get there and go inside and you work and whatever you're going to do. How many of us really went outside and looked up? Do you remember that the sky is blue? Do you remember that leaves are green? I like to go outside and look at the clouds and feel the wind and look at the leaves, and I can remember the shapes of certain plants and certain leaves. One of my favorite bushes to rub my hands across is called bobiernadora. In English, they call it the rain bush, and it smells like rain when you rub it. Or when you find a rosemary bush and you can rub your fingers on it and smell it and remember what it's like to smell and remember what textures feel like. Do you really remember what a rock feels like? Go outside and stretch your legs and walk and heal. Finding inspiration to make art. Finding inspiration in nature to remind yourself of where you come from. Because if you don't know where you come from, then you really don't know where you're going. With this whole COVID thing, we need to remind ourselves who we are and where we come from and where our power lies so that we can inspire others. Because remember, when you give yourself permission to shine brightly, you give other people permission to shine too. I guess that's what I got to say right now.
Aw, thank you, Fela. You're a very inspiring ceramics teacher. I just met you through this, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I would like to move on with Emily, who is currently a student in Florida right now. And I heard that you are going to show some artwork with us today as well. But simply, you were saying that you're passionate to speak on art and how to use it in therapy. So.
Yes, so with art, it's always been therapy. It was first founded as something therapeutic, like back in the 1940s, and how it is quote unquote an expression to manifest an unconscious imagery. For me, art has always been something that has been deep in me. I remember growing up, like having all these troubled times with myself, trying to figure out who I am. Art has always been something that I've leaned on through things happening in my family, world events, to even small problems back in school, as in bullying and all that sort of stuff. For me, with my art, I love to create reality. My art is usually based on realism, but it's because I like to paint the beauty of reality. I feel like there's a lot of artists that want to accentuate that or want to go whole abstract feel, and for me, I feel like nothing is more beautiful than the people, than the reality that keeps us grounded, and to remember us that this is where we come from and this is like who we are. That's why I like to represent a lot of my artwork of Mexican Americans. People grew up in El Paso City and overall Mexicans, because that's where our blood has come from and those are our people. So talking about how art is a therapy, it has proven to help a lot. And in the studies in Harvard, it has shown that once you go into 50 minutes into like creating an artwork, it has like helped your mood tremendously. It will alleviate any pain that you had, whether it's physical or mental. Art is something that it is beautiful. It is, sorry, my cat over here. It is something that it truly helps one another. It unifies everyone. Art is something that everybody could speak on, at least for the people that could see and hear and could touch. Art is not only just painted on canvases or drawn in sketchbooks. Art is everywhere from music to film and to regular traditional medias. I think right now, like, it's a good time for art. I think art is more needed than ever in this current crisis. We are taking the time to like look into ourselves and to think, like, what is it that I like? What is it that I should be doing? With all this free time, a lot of artists and even people who haven't even tried art are finding creative ways to to express themselves, to do all these activities, whether it's just coloring in to just pass time or whether it's to create an artwork for a statement and activism. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with the support of the art communities that we have right now. Artists are being recognized, whether doing street art, raising propaganda, raising awareness into COVID-19, and to like remember to wash your hands, to remember that if we wear masks, if we stay together, stay inside, this will all pass. I would like to talk about the artists and art communities right now. Right now, a very big artist, Kristen Abolaka, she is doing this series where she is outlining her drawings, her famous artworks, and she is providing free coloring pages for people. So that's one of the great ways art is used for people to use it as a therapy. Again, it doesn't have to be creating a whole new art piece, whether you're worried about, if I could draw, I don't think I could draw, I don't think I could do this or that. It just starts with just coloring in the lines, or even going outside the lines. You let yourself express through that art. That is your art, and during this whole crisis, you express how you feel. Whether you want to get away from that or whether you want to actually talk about it and express it. So Kristen Abolaka, she's an amazing artist. I am pretty sure a lot of people already know. We have virtual galleries now. One of the things that is good about art nowadays is that we have digital media. Like we have the internet that's gonna help us into expressing our artwork and to show everybody our artwork. There's this local organization called Gestos Locales, and they just received the submissions to having a virtual gallery. And it's artists based on New Mexico, El Paso, Juarez, and everywhere along the border. All border artists are welcome for that gallery, whether if it's artwork based on the current crisis right now or it's just something that you want to represent in your culture. And I think that is a wonderful thing to have. I think a lot of us miss going into galleries, going into shows, and seeing artists and meeting them. But now that we have these social media platforms, virtual galleries, and even this right now, this is a great way to connect with your locals. And we have the fun social media challenges. People are getting connected into tagging artists, supporting one another. People are having fun creating fun challenges, whether it's recreating an old painting using household items, or just sharing your thoughts and sharing your thank yous for those healthcare workers who are put on the line. One of the greatest social media challenges that I participated in is called the Viral Arts Project. It was created by an organization called Artist Activist Relief Fund. What they do is that they raise money for artists and activists to have during this crisis, whether a lot of us don't have a job, a lot of us are hurting financially, so they're doing this great project to raise funds for artists and activists. And another thing that I think it's fun and I have personally done myself is live streams. I like to create live streams. I like to create Draw With Me live streams. I like to paint, talk about art, answer questions, and I enjoy having one-on-one time with other artists. And I love to hear comments saying that I enjoy your live stream because I could draw with you. And that's amazing to hear. And I think everybody needs someone to draw with. Everybody needs somebody to lean on, creativity. Everybody needs someone, I like to say. And let me share my screen for so what I have here is an art series that I started called The Little Things. So during this whole crisis, we have been ordering takeout, ordering Uber Eats, And I think one time me and my mom, like, we ordered Chinese food, and I think this was a great representation of what's going on. The takeout, the people who risk their lives delivering food. And also talking about the whole Chinese xenophobia that's going on in the States. How this virus came from Wuhan, China, but yet, like, we're treating all Chinese Americans as the enemy. It's not fair for them. It's not helping anyone. And I think this art piece talks about a lot about that, and not even like expressing it like literally. The thought is there. The thought that we need to be the change. So as they talked about in the beginning, Serena, that I've created this art piece, this art series, and it's about the immigration crisis that's going on right now in America. So this is the first piece that I have in that series, and it's obviously the Border Patrol agents, and they're colored in black and white, and the colorful blue sky is reflected on them. And then we have the centerpiece, which is an actual photograph painted, that I painted, that of an immigrant woman with her son in her back. And what this represents is that keeping all the negative or the fear black and white, and having the people our immigrant people in color, it shows that we are a colorful culture. We are here to bring our culture to America and to be safe. And I think this speaks a lot. And then we have here, which is the fence. Usually the fence is orange-red, and right here I put it white. And I think it represents it perfectly, because I like to think of it as a white picket fence of America. And going along through these 3 series, immigrants have to tackle all these walls, whether it's physical or non-existent. Because I feel like another wall that a lot of us has to go through as immigrants is the fear of discrimination, the fear of getting rejected, the fear of losing everything that you've worked for. So I painted Serena, and going through the art and talking about expression, this art is meant to unify people, to bring peace. Art is meant to remember a loved one that sadly passed away. This was a commission piece asked for a Miami local about her sister that passed away, captured in a moment where they bonded. Art is meant to express a feeling, a sort of emotion that you're feeling right now, as I captured myself in this painting, or the strong confidence of women, Mexican women, and comparing them into the desert flowers that even through the driest of times, the hardest, harshest weathers, we will stand tall, and we will continue to be as beautiful as the desert flowers. So as we are all fearing during this time, frustrated over financial issues, over everything that's going on with the healthcare workers, not even getting a clear, definite answers from governments or local officials, let's just remember to keep each other unified and to not forget where you come from, not to be proud of being a Mexican, about being proud about being a native, about being proud of being American. So my last note is, juntos superaremos. Together we will overcome. And that's all I have to say about that. My social media is Emily Rose. You can find me in Emily Pearl Art on Facebook, and my YouTube channel is Emily Pearl Art.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. What a surprise. I had no idea. I was like tearing up. So the last two people are both healers here local in El Paso. That's what's really beautiful ever since I moved from California to El Paso, is the healing culture here is really interesting and diverse and beautiful. So two healers, both Melly and Steph, I'm going to talk to you individually, but with our last speakers, Melly, would you like to just in general talk about how you've been helping clients virtually with fear right now?
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Melly. I'm a dream interpreter and dream healer, and actually my business is primarily online. So we use Zoom to connect within my community, share holistic modalities to help them overcome fear and stress. And the main thing that I do is help sleep and stress individuals uncover the hidden root cause of their anxieties through their dream work. So that's what I call dream healing and what I teach and share about. I love using this platform because we can connect with people that are all over the world, and it can bring us together, not even having an idea that we would be put in a situation like this. So what I've been doing now to help my community even more is add more Zoom calls. We do ceremonies, moon ceremonies, where we set our intentions, where we journal, where we learn, use this time productively to learn about dream work. Because something that I really feel that we can harness while we sleep is all the healing that could come from it, from understanding what your subconscious is trying to tell you. A lot of us obviously are fearful of what's going on, the stress with finances, paying bills, as well as our health. So our dreams are probably reflecting that with nightmares or having trouble sleeping, which is lowering our immune system. And we don't need that right now, right? So what I'm doing is I'm sharing more education on how to relieve that stress and have that communication with your subconscious mind. I'm also an aromatherapist, so I create these elixirs and teach people about the healing properties of these plant medicines so that you can also use them to get grounded, like with the woodsy essential oils, and then use them to help you sleep better. And when you wake up from your dream, you can understand what the message it was trying to tell you, what is the root cause of your fear, and how you can overcome it, because at the end of the day, we are our best healers and we know what we need. So that's what I'm doing. I feel like dream work entitles so much. Lucid dreaming is the one that I am thinking about right now, because when you have control of your dream, then you can face those fears and reprogram your mind into seeing that it's all in your head, right? So you can change your reality that way. The mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, so we can really visualize the fear moving away when you are in control of your dreams, and then live that reality when you wake up. So that's a bit of what I do online, and something that within our community, which is called the Dreaming Yogi community, we share these different self-care tips. We encourage each other to do these modalities. I share meditations. We have a library of meditations, and I'm a big nerd about everything holistic. So we have workshops, we have gatherings, virtual gatherings here, as well as the education piece, and just overall support within all the beautiful people that are in the community. So that is what I have been doing for my community.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I left my Instagram handle on the little right there, the name, and I'm Melly the Dreaming Yogi on everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, and yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're going to go ahead and end with Steph. I know that you already have prepared a protocol for how you've been able to share with clients in this time of fear. Specifically, you're working a lot with birth work as a doula, but overall everything. So
yeah, so 90% of my clients are women. Not that I discriminate men. I normally get men through the women as families. I am a strong believer in supporting women because we have this beautiful organ that not men have, and that's the womb. And this womb tells us a lot of things, from health, emotion, and to create, you know, another beautiful baby. And so I strongly believe, and I tell my postpartum moms that yes, we are here to take care of our family, and yes, we're here to be parents and nurture them, but in the same time, we need to take care of ourselves emotionally, physically, you know, mentally, so we can be there grounded and centered to help our families, you know, whatever it is, to inspire, to draw, to heal, to connect with each other. So that is something I strongly believe, and I tell my families. And this times is making us feel uncomfortable, because we're used to having a system where we get up, we're busy, we sometimes eat, we don't eat, we have to handle our emotions later, and maybe I'll eat in healthier ways, I don't know, take a takeout, or you know what, I just can't do it, right? So we have so many things in our life that takes so much space and time that we forget ourselves. So it becomes very uncomfortable, right? People don't know what they're doing, and it feels very unbalanced because we ignore all these things. So now we're in a time where we have to, these emotions and thoughts come more clearly, more louder, and we have to reflect, right? Now we do stuff like, you know, earthing and fixing our home, looking outside, trying to love the space that we're in now, that we tend to put aside as well. And something that I am into, and Serena has been amazing in helping me in Sisterhood Connection, is that we've been talking to politics to continue that support for women, because now they're limiting, the visitors, they're considering doulas as visitors, people who are essential to help the women to birth in hospitals. They're not essentials anymore, and they're just visitors, and they only limited women to have that support. The birth is something that is a memory and you can never forget, you know, so if it was beautiful or traumatic, it's always going to be there, that story. And that's something that, you know, I feel strongly in representing and helping women to always have something that their voice is being heard and that they matter. And so this is applying, so I believe I created this 6 steps because I help with women with postpartum who are suffering with traumas, with fears, with anxiety and postpartum, and we do a lot of things virtually. And so I'm gonna go a little bit diving into the 6 steps really quickly. And so one of the 6 steps, number 1, is writing out all our emotions, all the good ones and bad, right? The negative or positive, you want to say. And then from there, we want to focus on the fears, because the fears are what they hold us back. They make us not do something that could potentially be something positive in our life. And we focus on like the 3 of them or 5 of them. And we have to understand the root cause. Since I do a lot of holistic stuff, there is a reason why. I am thankful for there's hospitals and medications when it's needed to stabilize, but I don't believe in long term, nor do I believe it's like, oh, here's a pill. And it's like, but why? Why are we feeling this? What is going on? Kind of like what Millie says, like in her dreams, right? They're trying to find the root cause of why is this feeling. So the same thing, I believe in the root cause. And so from there, once we start identifying and being our own detectives, then we can understand why it's coming. Then the time is, the 3rd one is to release. Release is not only saying, oh, you got this and you're positive, just think positively. It has to be a little bit more, because everything is energetically. You know, there's a connection, a memory. And for the neurons to create and remember, it's creating what? Electricity, connection, communication, receiving and sending. And so for this, we need to remember the memory and this connection that links to an emotion. And that emotion can link to what? Physical anxiety, panic, heart going fast, our blood pressure going up, right? So then there's like this chain of everything. So I do a release with 2 different modalities, from biohealing and doing electrical connection, disconnection, right? And that helps it to become a memory and not be affecting you emotionally, and being able to be like the absorber while still reliving it. once we release it, we go back to those fears and start accepting a different truth, a different perspective, and being able to see it slightly different versus scary. Because fear comes from the unknown, unsure. I don't know how I could do this, right? And from there, we start connecting those fears from affirmations that you could say every single day. And lastly is to take action plans. Not only that, when I'm talking about birth and postpartum, is more like, okay, you have this fear that pain is going to be horrible. Let's change the pathways in our brain and that perspective. But not only that, how can we reduce the chances to have less pain? So now we're becoming proactive in the sense of how can we reduce the chances of having that fear. Not only are you helping energetically, but then you're becoming logic with science and research and being proactive. So those are the 6 steps that I normally go in guiding my clients when it comes to birth and postpartum. But again, this could be also other besides, in that sense, in that regardance. So that is pretty much what I have when it comes to being proactive in helping dealing with fear and walking through it and, overcoming it. And so I am honored to be here and speaking to you guys. So I will be putting a link there. If you guys feel like you guys want to talk to me privately for 15 minutes, I would like to give that sharing healing and doing that.
All right, so that was that. Thank you so much to all the panelists who just spoke. This was such an honor. I believe now, this is the end. There wasn't time for question and answer, but we were able to have everyone speak very thoroughly and get what they wanted to share out. So thank you so much for all of you volunteering your time and space to help students and faculty and staff in El Paso right now at the university and community college. And there's some announcements that I am not a part of. So love you all.
Thank you all so much. My camera all of a sudden stopped working, so I do apologize for that. My name is Edgar, and I work for the Student Engagement and Leadership Center. I just wanted to thank you all the panelists again, and thank everyone for joining us. As Serena mentioned, unfortunately, we did not have time for a Q&A, but we do ask of you all, please go ahead and fill out that link that we sent. It helps us keep track of our attendance so we can let our panelists know. If y'all have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm not sure if some of our panelists will stay a few minutes after the session has been over. But if not, thank you all so much again for joining, and thank you for our panelists for sharing. It was an incredible, very powerful message today, so we really appreciate it. And virtual claps to y'all. Thank you all.